Yeah, it seems like it all goes round and round in circles. And let's see if this match will go your way. You way.
My way. You way. My way. It will.
Well, I'm
it will.
actually... Of course, no panicking right now. I mean, we talked a little bit about it last night. Midnight and Yato on the same stream, both very confident in their team's ability here. I want to say Yato a little bit more outspoken, Midnight a little bit more reserved, doesn't want to give out too much. But we were talking about it, especially against the game against Area 77 and Gaiman Gladiators. There's a lot of picks out there. There's a lot of bans you can put, which leave open still many picks that can be utilized, and we're going to see how well both of these teams can kind of utilize that. We've talked about the Lu Yi, Nicolette, a special has I want to say even before Lu Yi was the Lu Yi that we all were fearing, Nicolette was still feared on the Lu Yi back in her, I want to say, Team Sexy days. A team that she was on, I want to say 2 years ago, she brought in and actually was one of the ones that made me a fan. Of course, we're going to see that banned out by TA. They're not going to go ahead and take the chance of her getting her hands on that.
Now, with what BTK kind of has provided with us with a lot of the past matches, you know, something like an Harith, a pack coming out from their side lanes is something that we've definitely been quite used to. With the Lu Yi being banned on the board, things like the Valentina and the Varia becomes a little bit more prio here. It seems like both of these teams are looking for some target bans, right? DA painting the story that, hey, we're going to focus on Nicolette's hero pool, potentially first picking a mage of our choice. Things like the Vexana and the Varia is still available. And for the side of BTK, you know, after that first pick, especially since Louis is being banned out, things like the Ruby, the Arlot can be available to flex onto that roam position to, you know, to make things a little bit interesting. Of course, you know, the dominance of the utility style jungle, right? Kush and Mobazane both are very, very pro-efficient on heroes like the Akai, the Barats, the Fredrin, the Boxia. So there's a lot going to be quite available. The Fredrin gets taken out. You know, I'm expecting something like a mage first pick into a utility jungle like a Boxia as the counter for the early games of this draft.
I was going to say, but do you give up the Barats to BTK?
Give it.
Or do you
give
take that away? Just you just say, just give it. The one thing is that I want to say DA of any of the teams here for BTK, DA probably know BTK the most. They have the most, I want to say, personal experience with the team. Kush used to be a member of BTK way back before Yato and all of them. So, I mean, they know each other. If anybody's going to be able to kind of know perhaps his rotations, where he likes to go, the aggression he likes to have to try to steal, which we've seen. Zane can kind of get caught. He's prone to really want to stall the enemy jungler, to start taking his minions early, and he can get caught sometimes. So we'll see if either Zane has become a little bit more disciplined, or if DA is able to find Zane and quickly collapse onto him.
Wow. So a very neutral start, in my opinion, for both of these teams, right? A first pick CC doesn't really give away too much. The same thing with BTK, right? The export against CC, a matchup that we've seen pretty much numerous of times, is something that's not out of the ordinary. Nicolette, early Valentina pick. It definitely feels like we have a rise of a early game Valentina in the draft. It's not something that has been significantly prioed, but you know, especially in our upper brackets, it seems like a lot of these teams really like it. Now, you talked about the Barats. Barats comes out paired up with the Navaria. The side of BTK could opt to, you know, go for a marksman and deny some of the marksman picks, and, you know, rely on Zane's wide hero pool, especially since they're probably banning out the Boxia, the Akai, or pick something up for Mobazane. Let Cold World get a better opportunity, especially in the last pick, because BTK, they do have the last pick available. Last pick roam is definitely something, a very good strategy that people like. Yes, Mobazane picks up the Akai, so no jungle denies. The side of BTK missing a marksman and a roam, and the same thing goes for the side of DA.
Yeah, I'm wondering what we're gonna have here. I think the Are we going to go ahead and ban out the Roger, or I'm expecting either a Roger or a Harith ban out here to either complement with what they're going to be taking or the counter to one of those as well out here. Basic has actually been very good. He's I want to say from the player. Oh.
Love it.
It's not every day. I mean, we've talked about this before. I'm more of a fan of the Hanabi when there's an Angela on the team, just because I felt like that is a combination that is just nigh unkillable with the Heart Scarred combination shield plus the Flask of the Oasis. I'm not a huge fan of her without that, just because, I mean, I feel like that puts her up on a level that makes her more viable in that lane. But we did see last week, DA did have a lot of success with the Hanabi, sans the Angela out there. So, I mean, a good call out by them, but like I feel like we're kind of ignoring the bigger problems for the whole of the meta, which is that Roger pick that could possibly be coming out here.
Now, I'm going to go on with my praying strategy once again. Things like Masha and Natan should be coming out quite early in the draft, especially since things like the Akai, the Export, even possibly the Valentina doesn't get banned out too often. The side of DA opting to ban out a lot of the sustained and the utility heroes that Mobazane loves to have, but you know, to be able to, oh, okay, never mind. I'm gonna take it back. There's probably no Masha coming in. Okay, maybe DA is gonna go with the Masha. All right, Masha and Natan for DA then. Let's do that, Private. I've given up. I'm disappointed. I don't like this.
I was a little confused with the Florin ban out there. I feel like that's a very tiny blip in a very large pool that Cold World has shown us thus far for BTK. Arlot being picked up, I mean, that's a pretty dominant. Wait, so that's going to be in Arlot Rome, I presume. Yep. For them, for DA, and then we're just waiting for that marksman pickup by them. Do we go with the Roger to be countered by the Harith? No, we're gonna go with the Ixia.
Yeah, it gets picked up here now. Just to shine a little bit of light on this foreign pick, the bloom that comes from it is a global ultimate that does not get affected by any anti-heal. Right, so things like Boxia that is widely popular, especially in the Asia server, Florin could potentially be a great pick, right? You know, to go up against things like the Matilda and Angela is definitely a possibility there. So I do see where DA is looking for, but I don't know if BTK's strategy is to actually go for something like a Ube strategy, right? Cold World, very, very high mechanical hero player. He can do pretty much everything when it comes down to set, utilities, picks off. Things like the Kaja could also be available here. I think he has a very wide hero pool that he can choose. And he opted to go for the Grok. The Wild Charge definitely works great, especially to deal with a lot of the CC and the no dashes coming out from Melon. So, you know, BTK with a pretty strong draft. DA, of course, a strong draft themselves too, but we will have to see how these two teams face up in the very first match of the series.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, I mean, we've got the backline dive from BTK, so you're going to have to be very careful if you're Melon. We've seen him, he's been an absolute star for Devious Activity. He's been pretty much, I want to say, the MVP for like the last 3 weeks of them. He's absolutely shined. But here we got some backline dive. We've got Xborg with his last Insanity. Mobazane's going to be able to just bowl right through the entire team if he wants to get to him. And then you've got the Wild Charge from Cold World. A lot of tools for BTK to be able to shut down Melon before he becomes that menace that we've seen here in a lot of their games. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've come here for. BTK taking on Devious Activity in our last series of the night, the first game of this series.
Yeah, two teams very, very proficient on, we typically call the strategy the front to back type of strategy, right? Where you have the mages and the marksmen in the backside, and you got the front line, the heavy fronts in the front. You know, fronts in the front. Devious Activities, they got the Barats, the Arlot, and the CC to be able to negate a lot of the damages out in the front, and even try to get onto their backside if possible. And the same thing with BTK, right? The Akai, the Grok, those are strong frontline heroes. Even the Export, it's going to be quite hard for both teams to kind of penetrate each other. Now, let's take a look at some of the emblems. Two common emblems on both of the roamers, Joybaj, with the Quantum Charge, along with the Quantum Charge coming out from Guac. So lots of utilities quite early on, some trades and auto attacks here and there for some mobility. But in terms of the emblems, besides the Quantum Charge on the R-Lot and the Grok, relatively standard across the board here.
I feel like this is going to be like this composition from BTK combined with the emblems is like it's all about penetration, like just rushing through the enemy, getting to that back line, shutting down those squishies very quickly and being able to close the distance, especially on heroes like Yato, who likes to really stay very far, poke out with a lot of those little sniping abilities. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Devious Activity is going to be able to set up correctly, maybe delegate some of these fights. Or if it's going to be like BTK, just like they get the momentum, they are able to charge, they close it down, and then able to secure some of these objectives.
Well, you know, quite honestly, I think both of these teams are quite happy with how their draft is going on, right? The both front to back, they have you know, abilities to stop each other when it's necessary, right? CC can dive onto the backside, same thing with the R-Lot. Versus for the side of BTK, they don't have too much of necessary dives. They do have the Quantum Charge, but before that,
yeah, a nice well-placed little snipe there is able to take down, almost take down the Faraga armor from Yellow. On the back, big wild charge, followed by a last insanity. Beautiful wombo combo there from Bloodthirsty Kings, but Kush on the back end, able to secure the turtle.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good pickoff for the side of BTK. They were able to displace T and get the last insanity off of them, but the side of DA do pick up the objective. So it's going to be quite even across the board. Now, if we take a look at some of the late game scaling potential, I do think Exia and Rithel matches up quite well, even though both of them are significantly different in the gold lane, right? Rithel definitely have a lot more mobility in terms of the late game, building up some of the crits into like Has Claws, Berserkers, versus Exia is going to go for a much different route, right? Something like the Corrosion into DHS. So very different late game potentials from both these marksmen, but they both scale up quite well. Now, in terms of the jungle, right? Akai and Barat. Typically, Barat has kind of a small advantage in terms of getting that retribution off, especially with the first skill, just a little bit more damage than Akai's burst. But he does have the heavy spin to be able to push enemies out, and also Barat has ability to deal with that, right? The Daytona's welcoming to get some of the immunes off, and if before that, it seems like they're going to go for it.
Oh, Mobazang gonna have to use that heavy spin to get himself out of harm's way. Almost able to close the distance on there. You're talking about late game, and I almost want to say, I want to point out something very specific about the kit of Akai, especially when it comes to a lot of these lore dances. Akai, every single time he uses an ability, he's gonna get himself a little bit of shield on him, which helps him when it comes to a lot of these lore dances because he doesn't actually take damage. He's able to juggle a lot of those shields around to make sure he's not, whereas if Kush tries to juggle around a lot of these Lord fights, eventually the Lord is going to be able to tick him down, which I've seen in a lot of these late game fights for BTK, that Mobazang gets really comfortable on that Akai, and they're able to kind of just withstand those that waiting period at these objective fights.
Seems like Milo is going to be coming up. CC shortly followed here.
Ooh, yeah, Kush in a little bit of trouble, down to about 50%. In comes the last insanity. Mielo able to fend the kill onto Kush. Yato finds the turtle. Now the full barrage is out. Melon finds a kill onto Mobazang. Coldworld, very low. Joybaj gets picked off next. T with a dash is going to be able to create some distance, but we are now sitting at a 1-3 for the Bloodthirsty Kings. But another objective goes over to Devious Activity.
Yeah, they were able to pick up that objective. They almost had, you know, quite a strong winning fight, but just a little bit of an overextension after the kill. They did kind of get traded there. The scoreboard is 3-1, but the gold is still quite close for both of these teams. Now, one thing from the side of DA they do have is this range, right? BTK has a very front to back heavy focus type of comp. They don't have assassins that can get onto the backside or high mobility heroes like CC or Benedetta to be able to get onto the backside of Yato. So if they are unable to shut down Yato, it might smell a little bit of a trouble. But on the other hand, devious activities, they don't have too much peel, right? Arlott has a little bit of the CC. Bratz can stand in front of the people, but Exia doesn't have a lot of people like, let's say, a Terizla to stop people in their tracks. And I think that's DA's weakness, right? If a few of the front lines do get softened up or the position is not correct, a wild charge can end their lives, or heavy spin from the backside paired up with the Rithel, it could smell a lot of trouble. So DA, even with a comp that the Navario is going to be quite safe in the backside, especially compared to what BTK have in terms of their skills, it's still going to be quite the hard team fight. It's not convincing enough for me to say that, hey, Devious is going to be able to take this, because Yato is not going to die at all. Yato's probably not going to die, but it's still going to be a hard match for Devious to get a convincing win here.
Man, I feel like it's going to come down to who is the initiator for a lot of these fights. Are you going to be able to start off with that final slash, which is going to allow Ixia to kind of put on the damage there? Oh, but we do have Kush is going to go ahead and start on this turtle on the back end. T and Mobazane fighting. Mielo trying to put on the damage on the Kush. You do have the last Insanity followed by a wild charge. The combination able to take down Kush. Another well-placed combination from BTK. That's going to go ahead and reset the turtle, but DA not through just yet. T doing a good job. He's zoning out Mobazane. So they don't even actually have a retry for this turtle right now. Speaking of which, Joybaj on the mid right now. Nicolette actually burst him down. Mobazane finds a kill onto T. That is 2 down for devious activity. They're going to go ahead and back up. Bloodthirsty King's going to go ahead and pick up this next turtle 1-5 in their favor.
Yeah, it's so interesting in that fight where you have the CC kind of zoning out the Akai for most of the fight, and then you also have the X-Borg zoning out Kush. But the difference is they were able to pick off Kush pretty much by himself, and the CC kind of falls shortly after. Now BTK takes the objective, no contestation, pushes their gold lead to a more significant margin this time around. It's about a 1k lead so far. Along with that, tower is just going to be pushed a little bit more. 1.7 now is going to be the overall difference here. BTK definitely having a strong showing. The front to back is working quite well. Even, not able to get Yato in a lot of these team fights. It seems like the front line of DA is unable to sustain against the high burst and damage that BTK has, and BTK is just kind of able to win majority of the skirmishes so far in this game.
Yeah, and I was about to say that there's just a big difference when it comes to the CC, which is what devious activity is going to kind of need to be able to burst down somebody from the side of BTK here. You got a huge front line. You've got, yeah, you can see here the audience predictions, 20% for devious activity. I feel like that's pretty generous for the amount of BTK fans that are in North America here. Yeah. But when it comes to these objective fights, there's a lot of tools in the heavy spin, the wild charge, Mielo being able to zone people out with that last insanity. A lot of tools here that can shut down Kush, that can stun Kush to leave open an opportunity for Mobazane to get the retry while Kush is either being stunned or zoned out. And it's something that the team of devious activity is going to need to counter if they want a chance here. As they go ahead, put some damage on the Mobazane, does activate that heavy spin, and he gets taken out by Kush. That's 20 seconds still left, but at the top lane, BTK finding themselves a trade.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that Zane typically gets caught off from time to time, but the side of BTK, they do get the punish onto the top side. They're able to pick up the marksman, which I think that's quite a win on their hand. It just feels like the side of Devious, they're just like the X-Borg impact is just so crazy right now. 401 is his overall. He pretty much has 5 out of the 6 kills on the board in his hands, and the X-Borg is just so hard to deal with, especially with the front lines that the side of Devious has to offer, right? CC, Barat, Arlott, those are heroes that gets shredded down by the X-Borg quite easily here, and I think that paints a very, very good picture on what happened in the early game, right? Kush getting picked off and completely zoned away by Milo, and then potentially now Milo is able to get a few kills here and there. He has the immortality, he is in the front side. You also got the wild charge there. Impact play.
Yeah, big wall comes out. Full barrage is out. The rest of the Bloodthirsty Kings are going to back up. Kush alone in the back lines of BTK gets bursted down. Coldworld's going to have to find himself an escape back home, and the Lord is reset. I want to say BTK. I don't know what they're doing for like practice, but like a lot of these engagements just seem so smooth, so rehearsed. Wall up, immediate wild charge, immediate last insanity, takes down Kush without, he doesn't even know what hit him. Yellow trying to zone out. Here comes another last insanity, not able to find the target, but the Lord being ticked down. Basic does find a kill onto T. I believe this is going to be a free Lord for BTK.
Yeah, and we haven't really mentioned Milo too much here. He is going to be leading in terms of the damage dealt chart, which is very, very significant for an XP lane, right? Xborg, typically you do build up a lot of the tanky items or axe into kind of the immortality that Milo has right now, probably paired up with the brute force. And he's dealing tons of damage so far, being so extremely annoying. BTK here setting up with the Lord marching down on the top side, gets the last sanity off here.
Yeah, he does not have any more. Oh, another wild charge comes in at the cost of Coldworld's life. Mobazane comes in, heavy spin onto Joy Boz, looking for a kill onto him. Melon is down. Oh my gosh, a lot of damage goes onto BTK, but the rest of DA, are they going to be able to capitalize on him? Yellow still has that immortality, but he is dangerously low. The rest of Devious Activity are going to have to back up as there is a Lord at their top gates.
Yeah, another great team fight coming out from the side of BTK. The heavy spin paired up like with the damage that they had, it was just a little bit too much for the side of DA to handle. Now, there was moments of greatness where, you know, the Brass was able to kind of get that knockback and 2-3 members came back and almost felt like DA was able to get that burst through, but the team fight still went into the favor of the side of BTK. The gold gap, 4.6k, about a 1.5 on the gold laner. Once again, you know, Irithel typically goes into kind of like that crit Malefic Roar, Berserkers has claws, versus the Exia is going for a lot of the attack speed. We call it kind of the Trinity build, where they go for corrosion and DHS. You know, it's just different styles and marksmans. I think both are great, but it just still feels like DA is lacking a little bit in terms of kind of the peel department.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a replay here for that big push up there. We saw the wild charge. Coldworld gets cost, but Mobazane comes in there, does get a lot of damage on there. We're back to the main game here. Mielo putting on the damage. He's got, I want to say he's like 3k above most of the players here, so able to kind of withstand. He's got a lot of his defensive items that you can see pretty much an example of there. They're not even able to bring him down.
Yeah, I mean, 404, he's gotten pretty much every single kill possible. You know, most likely highest damage dealt player in the game so far. You know, Valentina definitely, you know, playing more of a supporting act. Basic also farming kind of for the late game, but Milo definitely has, you know, shown himself, you know, put himself above the rest so far in this match. Definitely showing a strong performance here so far. 5k gold lead, DA, you know, looking to see if they can get back into this game. They have what it takes, right? Novaria does able to have the ability to, you know, clear waves, prolong the matches. I think that's one of DA's strength here, is the Novaria is still deathless, right? Every single member has died, but the Novaria is being kept alive quite well, and I do think that is going to be the reason if the side of DA can get a little bit of reinforcement. But again, BTK playing a great game, especially on Milo. Side of DA really has to find a response against the Xborg here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not just the export that is the problem. I want to say BTK has been doing such a great job. When they're all here and they're not being zoned out, Coldworld, it's wall, wild charge, into last insanity, plus Nicolette's putting on the damage as well. Kush in a little bit of trouble here. Is going to get popped up there and is getting bursted down. Mielo with another kill under his belt there. That's going to be, I believe, a 5 for him right now. 5-0-4, now stealing the purple buff while Zane goes ahead and secures himself a Lord.
This is a really, really strong team coming out from BTK, right? DA especially with the new lineup coming in, the performance against Nighthorde was so crystal clear. It felt extremely convincing, but this time around, BTK definitely shown that DA still has a lot of weaknesses that they have to kind of watch out for, because 7k at 15 minutes is not significant, but it's still extremely one-sided. BTK has all the outer towers available now. They're getting a very good sync from both of the side lanes. The Lord is marching down, so I would say this is pretty much the most perfect scenario that BTK has. But once again, DA, they have the Novaria, should be able to get some clear going on, but I do think the siege is going to be quite nasty to defend against.
Yeah, attacking from all fronts right now. You can see one tower goes down at the mid. Big wild charge lands on the Kush. You can see Mielo putting on the damage. Nicolette, the full barrage, finding a kill onto Nicolette. This might be over for... Oh, Mielo has in the... well into the back lines. Looks like he got left behind. And unfortunate heavy spin onto T is going to allow Basic to find a kill.
Yeah, now finally DA getting a little bit more traction in some of these team fights. Definitely a small mistake on BTK's end to continue the siege even after the Lord is marched down. But look at DA's base. It's just wide open. There's some damage chipped onto the base tower, and the last outer tower is just, you know, one hit away from down. So definitely BTK, that was a well versed push right there. Now DA on the attack onto the top side.
Yeah, now really actually using this momentum that they just got for that defense to its fullest. Unfortunately, with so little health left on that tower, I feel like you have a very small amount. You have a small window if you're DA to make something happen before you have to start answering stuff at your base, possibly pushes coming. But I want to say that they're starting to come back here, bringing down that gold lead to only 5k against BTK right now.
Yeah, I mean, the 5k lead, especially when we go on to this 17-20 minute mark where the Lord is just much more bigger, it's the gold lead is not going to be you know, too big of an impact, right, for both of these teams. And especially with the late game marksman scaling that Melon is on, also the Rithel that Basic has, it's still quite an even match. But BTK, the front to back comp paired up with the CC from the wild charge and the heavy spin, it's a lot to handle for things like, let's say, a Barat or even the Arlaw, right? They get displaced pretty much all instantly, and it's extremely hard to deal with. BTK definitely having a strong showing here. Milo coming into the battle, and members of DA just completely disengaged, right? They have to put the CC on the bot side. They don't have an inhibitor tower. They have to find a way to clear. It's going to be a 4v5 on most of these objectives. It's just the lack of the early game, the lack of the CC and the peel that DA has. They just don't have the perfect setup so far to be able to deal with the split push, you know, that bot side far wave that's just being pushed constantly, and it's just so annoying to deal with.
Yeah, and Mielo actually loses all of his Faraga armor, so he's going to have to back off. Joyboss into the back line, gets popped up. In comes Kush, looking for an opportunity. Immortality procced for Joyboss. He goes down to Basic. T alone in the back line of BTK. Full barrage is out, laying waste to the damage. You can see Moba Zane goes down, and that's going to mean no retribution for BTK. The rest of Devious Activity trying to trade up positions. Another kill. Melon finds a kill onto Mielo. Nicolette comes in from the side, and Melon flickers in for another kill. That is a triple kill for Melon for that engagement. They also pick up the Lord.
Yeah, the second that the Raga armor got picked off puts BTK kind of in a very big disadvantage, because you look at the damage dealt, right? 71k from the export. He was huge. And majority of these team fights now, Yato is going to be taking the lead in terms of the damage dealt. But the side of DA, especially when that export does not have the Raga armor or Last Sandy available, Kush pretty much has a very, very happy time in trading a lot of these kills. Even Moba Zane, he held on to that heavy spin until the last moment where he did see an opening, especially to go against T, but it backfired, right? The Daytona's welcoming was there to catch Zane off guard. They do get the pick off, and the Exia scaling 5-2-3 now with the DHS with the corrosion, He's hitting so extremely hard. It's now backfired for BTK that they don't have the gap closer. They don't have the backline damage to be able to find Melon in any of these team fights. And if they keep it up right now, it seems like DA just has the power and the ability to just siege with the front to back comp that they have.
And just like that, devious activity find 4 towers of bloodthirsty kings here, now looking for their 5th. We're going to go ahead and start moving on to the high grounds of the top. Pressure through the mid. Mielo struggling, looking for an opportunity. You're trying to see that front line right now. Mielo heading up the front. Cold World with the concealed play on the side. Here comes a big wild charge and a flicker. Finds a connection on the devious activity. T in trouble. Full barrage is out, but they close the distance too quickly onto Melon. He's heavy spinned against the wall. Basic finding his kills alongside Mielo. And now they are chasing NT in an unfortunate position here. Yato trying to support his escape, but it's not going to be long for T. And just like that, BTK turned this around.
Yeah, but Joybaj is still on the backside here. So DA definitely still having a last chance, last bit of survivability. The mid is going to get pushed along with the bot side. Now, that is a very, very big minion wave. Death timer is 20 seconds on the board. Basic already doing some damage. I don't know if DA is going to be able to hold on to this here.
Yeah, they're going to be able to try to, they're going to need to try to take down these minions. Final Slash comes out onto Mobazane, looking to try to take down these minions. But look at the rest of BTK nailing into this core. That's going to be game 1 going to BTK.
Yeah, the nail in the coffin here. BTK able to get the victory in a 21-minute fashion game. The gold lead is still quite close, but the Bloodthirsty Kings were able to come out on top. And, you know, we talked about kind of the front to back strategy that they had. If Milo was able to get that last insanity off, especially since his Raga armor was not taken away, it seems like BTK were able to get the fights that they were looking for that win. So, you know, if BTK is just a little bit more patient, they should be able to take this quite convincingly. And, you know, they were able to do so just that. Now, DA with a different strategy coming through, it was quite close. We saw a little bit of momentum when they, you know, decided BTK did fall a little bit under the base of DA. They were able to get a few towers, get some push in, but the overextension kind of cost them the game. Milo was able to kind of pull through once again. The last insanity hit gets off plenty of damage. The rest of the crew from BTK just coming in and cleaning up the whole entire fight.
Yeah, I want to say they lingered at that base a little bit too long. I don't blame them, though. You have the opportunity. You have the leg up on BTK. Why not try to press that to your advantage? Unfortunately, getting caught, and then BTK very quickly being able to turn that around. But the beginning of this game, too, as well, you can see there, Mielo 7, 2, and 5, and Basic as well, 6, 0, and 3 here. Really lighting it up and really being, I want to say, the damage for them. The early game, I want to say, goes off to Nicolette, Cold World, and Mielo. You had Cold World laying down those walls, and then immediately, as soon as the wall came up, they didn't even have a chance to react because there was already a wild charge coming for them. Nicolette coming on with the Frighten as well, and then before they knew it, before the Frighten wears off, you've already got a last insanity on its last tick and doing the damage, and Kush was just getting obliterated early game. It felt like this composition, it was either the composition or the actual team felt like they just needed some more time than BTK was willing to give them to kind of find their footing, find that advantage, and unfortunately it was just a little bit too late against a team like BTK.
And you know, a lot of the times, a lot of the damage dealers do outshine a lot of the utility focus, but I do think in this match, Milo and Cole will definitely shine the most in this very first match, right? The wild charge impact plays. He was always there in the beginning. He did get some pickoffs here and there. And even some of the walls are quite annoying to deal with. And when we talk about Milo, right, the rotations coming in, getting the first peel off, getting the last insanity, getting those picks that were so extremely important, led BTK pretty much to the success of this match. Rich Guy is going to be going to Basic. The carry, the highest damage dealt was Yato on the Novaria. Sandbag, of course, belongs to Mr. Mobazane himself. And the forgotten one taken by the support cast, Nicolette, a very support-oriented mage. Definitely well-deserved here, Private.
Well, yeah, and then also doing her job. She was there for the damage and to get that little frightened CC on there, and then to just give up those kills for let them stack on to Mielo, who was just doing such a great job. So hats off there to kind of have that restraint, especially because I want to say that she can, especially on that hero, do a decent amount of damage, but I want to say just doing what she's supposed to as a utility there, and the other place of damage there. DA, I want to say the draft not it didn't feel like it melded well together. There really wasn't a lot of protection for Ixia. You really had to rely on a mistake from BTK where they all suddenly decided that they needed to back up and they were on the retreat. And that's the main point where they were able to find solutions with the Ixia. She was able to catch them leaving or had them like kind of on the back foot. But like we saw from that very last engagement, there was really nothing protecting the Ixia when that full barrage went out, and we saw them able to close the distance very quickly on her.
And you know, it's hard to peel Exia off, especially when you go against so many people that immune a lot of the CCs, right? Grok, first skill, immune. Xborg, last insanity, immune, right? Heavy spin, really hard to deal with, disperses a lot, also has a small immune opportunity with a lot of the CC. So it's just quite the hard comp that DA drafted to be able to deal with what BTK has going over the head-to-head. It is going to be a roam-to-roam matchup. You know, the KDA definitely stands up much taller for Cold World. Damage taken also on his side. And, you know, even the kill participation, just a little bit more in favor of Cold World. So definitely good job for the side of BTK. I know he ended with a 0, 1, and 10. You know, very, very small deaths, almost 0 to no mistakes here for Mr. Cold World, and was able to pretty much take the series. Now, the not the series but the match, but team fight participation across the board, very much well done for both of these teams, I would have to say, right? High kill participation. Novaria 100%, Milo 80% stands out from the BTK lineup, and the damage dealt, it's 95k. If it wasn't for Yato, Milo definitely should be holding it down, and for the MVP candidate so far in this series, very, very high damage, high mechanics in terms of his rotation, his way of using the last insanity. And you could see how BTK just heavily relies on Milo to provide kind of the initiation paired up with Cold World. It's these two guys that are starting for the team fight. Mobazane waiting for the right moment to use that heavy spin. And you know, with this lineup coming through, BTK definitely prevailed in the very first match.
Yeah, and I want to say, especially in the early game, it just seemed like BTK's composition shined a little brighter. You just had that great, I want to say that great utility, CC, and damage in the early game, where it was the wall, wild charge, and then the CC from the wild charge, and the frighten from Nicolette, and then, of course, the damage that came from that last insanity. Whereas on the other side, you didn't really have things that gelled that well together. You were really banking on that late game damage on there. I mean, the only real CC that you had on the side of Devious Activity was the final slash R-Lot, and then you were just kind of, yeah, it's not enough, and you were kind of hoping, I mean, you're just hoping that they stick together, they don't move, because they're definitely going to try to get out of it. There was just so much CC on the side of BTK to really shine in that early game, and we're going to see if that kind of if we adjust a few things here for Devious Activity. That's just an outstanding draft for BTK.
That's why things like Terizla has kind of shined a little bit of light in the recent ages, right? Things like Boxia is honestly quite good, even with just a small stun. That's still better than kind of a no stun situation coming out from the Brats. Now, the Brats definitely has some kit that is, you know, peelable, right? Daytona is welcoming even the second skill with a little bit of knockback, with a little bit of displacement, but you know, generally it's just not enough for Exia, and that's just, I think that's just the weakness of that pick. That's the reason why we don't see it as often. It needs a great setup. It needs a very significant front line to stop a lot of the dive heavy focus metas, right? The Raja that goes onto the backside CC, and even the export that can just, you know, ignore a lot of the front. So definitely, you know, this time around, I think DA have a maybe a more interesting strategy. The Angela gets taken out, so, you know, potentially no Hanabi available this time around. And man, dude, these teams very interesting with the mind games, kind of like what GG does. They take a hero and they win with it, and then next time around they're like, you know, that we played quite well with that hero, we're not going to let you have it. Export gets taken out. I think that is a very good response considering how Milo pretty much impacted the whole entire game with it.
Yeah, which is interesting too, to take that out there. Wondering what the plan in mind there. They're going to have CCs taken out for devious activity. Even just what you talked about. They played it before. They're not going to let a BTK have it. I'm assuming traditionally we'd see the, I want to say Barats or the Akai Barats coming in for Mobizain, which means we're going to be leaving open, I want to say the mage pick and a strong XP lane possibly for DA.
It's so interesting that North America really loves this Barats pick, and you know, to not take it away, Barats is a very great hero, but we don't really see a lot of Barats being picked up so extremely early. I think things like the Boxia with a little bit of anti-heal might provide a little bit more. But DA looking for the Faramis and the Arlot. Now this opens the Lu E to be available to deal with the Faramis. If not the Lu E, right, Valentina, IMU, you know, cold, you know, Netherrealm versus Netherrealm, that's a great matchup. You could also slide in the Odette that I kind of mentioned. It's a great response towards the Faramis Swanson. I know Rem is out there shining. I know it's an Odette main out there. Odette is very good against Faramis. I would like to see it happen. We don't get to see the Louis in action, but the Valentina does come out to play. Nicolette with a great Valentina game from the last one, so definitely something expected. So BTK now with another pick available chooses to go for the Harith. This sets up for, again, the Paquito, the Benedetta that Milo really likes, you know, allows the Harith to kind of be in the 4 versus 4 team fights and allow Milo to carry on the split push role. So, you know, the Harith can just kind of be annoying, be a nuisance in a lot of these team fights.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm about to say. I think if I'm on the side of DEA, I'm looking to maybe pick up Paquito, or it might be taken out in this ban phase, because that's the big pick, right? You're heavy on the magic damage on the BTK side, so you're looking for some type of physical burst on his side. With only the XP laner and the roam pick left for them, there's very few options there. They're going to go ahead, DA feeling very comfortable with the Ixia pick again. I'm hoping that we have either some peel or a front line this time, because I really felt like we could not take off, because there was just never, well, there were very few opportune moments for Melon to really find a good position, be able to pull out that full barrage without the penalty of the BTK just like absolutely closing the distance and crushing him.
So things that peel well comes into mind for me in terms of the XP. I like the Terizla. Right, I think the Terizla is quite underrated. It has come back into the shine, so definitely something that DA should consider here. Things like the Kaja and the Franco, the suppressions, and especially with such a big hitbox that Barats has, Franco does quite shine here. And if he's able to get the Bloody Hunt either onto the Barats or even the Harith, that's going to be a free setup for Melon to have. Now, yes, I did say that it's very hard to slot Exia in recent. With the lineup that BTK has, it's too dive heavy. It's still very front to back centric. So, you know, I think Exia with the corrosion and DHS is gonna hurt Mobizain on the Barats quite significantly here. And Joybosh here goes with the pick. I love it. I love it. The Kaja and the Faramis, it's a strong combination on the mid, possibly one of the strongest sustained and clear duos that we have in the mid lane. And this pairs up quite well in terms of the front to back strategy, the peels that we're looking for, great adjustments on the side of DA.
But you do leave open. I'm assuming that we're going to see a Paquito on the side of BTK potentially here. Kaja, you're going to have the Divine Judgment. You're going to be able to pull back. But what I'm wanting from DEA for that, where's the burst? What's going to be able to burst down that person that you eventually pull? Ixia takes some time to kind of come online. Yato can possibly close the distance there, especially with I believe his Shadow Stampede. He can close the distance in there. He can hit them with his other durability. Depending on how many people are around, he deals a lot of damage, but you're definitely going to need something. And that's a lot of setting potential on the side of BTK.
Two of the strongest sets get slotted in for the side of BTK to kind of well-round their draft with a lack of CC in the first 3 picks. I think it's extremely smart. Side of DA has a couple of choices. One, to negate a lot of the CC with something like a Martis. They could also go for more of a utility style like the Boxia, right? So I think those are 2 of the available. They could also go for the Akai, right? You know, that's going to be triple CC with the Akai, the Kaja, and also the Arlot. So there's still options available. I don't think Fanny is going to get slotted here. I know Kush is a great Fanny player, but quite honestly, going against Whole World Ruby, like we've seen it not do so well. But the Nolan does come out to play. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's a dynamic that we haven't really seen a lot of success. A lot of the assassins, I feel like, don't really find a lot of success, especially in the top tier pro games. But Nolan is an outlier in terms of that. A very, very high win rate, especially in Asia, gets banned out quite a bit. And just judging from the amount of magic that the side of DA has with the Fairness, it's enough. It's enough to warrant a very damage-heavy jungler. So, you know, DA definitely having a different strategy this time around. You know, we'll see how it matches up against Bloodthirsty Kings this time.
I'm not completely opposed to the normally against with the Nolan out there. I might be like, there's a lot of CC on the side of BTK, but this is an answer to what I was bringing up before. You have the Divine Judgment. Where's the burst to take him down? If you don't succeed with Nolan in the early game, you can kind of set him on the back, wait for that Divine Judgment. He can come in with the Fracture, bing, bang, boom. You've got the damage you needed to actually really find that synergy for this Devious Activity composition. But ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be game 2 Devious Activity, looking for some revenge against BTK here in our second game of the series.
Oh, let's go. Well, you know, let's talk about some of the jungle matchup. Nolan, pretty much one of the fastest jungle clears in the game so far. He's so efficient in the jungle. He should be able to get from buff to buff, and even going up against a Barats, which does quite well in the jungle. Look at Kush. He's already moving on to his little green camp, got both of the buffs, and potentially looking to fight out for the Little Wanderer. Some early aggression from both teams. We know Kaja, Valentina, Fairness, all aggressive quite early on, right?
Ooh, and here's a little bit of that penalty you pay for having an assassin jungler. You see already BTK, Cold encroaching. Oh, Yato taken very low. But BTK already starting to encroach on the jungle of Devious Activity, looking for an opportunity to find Kush alone to maybe be able to find the kill before he's actually able to take off. Take a look at some of these emblems.
Yeah, a lot of aggressive emblems coming out from the side of DA. A lot of damage, just raw damage from the very first talent. Of course, Wilderness Blessings across the board. Even the XP laner has it to be able to rotate from the far lane into some of the team fights, right? So very aggressive emblems coming out from the side of Devious. On the side of Bloodhounds, though, a little bit more sustained, right? A lot of Brave Smites on different characters across the board, even some mobility, but overall just very sustained, very tanky from the side of BTK. On the other hand, you know, it's interesting. We do have something that's different. Kush on a tank emblem. Nolan, I'm not sure if I saw that correctly, but it was a tank emblem I did see. So just a little bit more sustain or the utility to deal with some of the frontline presence that BTK has. But you know, a turtle uncontested for the side of BTK here.
I'm not sure if that was a mistake. You can already see here, BTK uncontested for that first turtle. Now pressing their advantage into the jungle of Devious Activity. Joybot's in trouble. Out comes the Nether Realm. It's not enough, as getting scooped up is Joybot. That's going to be a first kill. 2 kills now for Bloodthirsty Kings.
Yeah, BTK definitely shining in a lot of the small skirmishes. Is quite convincing. They're just able to walk into deep enemy territory, get the team fight that they're looking for, get the pickoffs. It's about a 1k gold lead. So, you know, BTK, I feel like now they just love playing this kind of neutral game in the beginning. They get their small advantages here and there, just small outplays, small skirmishes that they're able to win.
Oh, This is kind of what I was afraid of with the Nolan pick in the early game. There is just so much CC on the side of Bloodthirsty Kings that wherever Nolan tries to creep in, he's going to have issues, even trying to close the distance on a squishy on anybody in the lanes. He's going to have problems. Even if he does close the distance, he's going to have trouble trying to get away from there. So it's all, I'm wondering if there's a more, another dimension to this plan for Devious Activity.
Yeah, and it is a tank emblem, Nolan. It's not something that we've seen before. I mean, we've seen the support emblem Fredrin coming out to play with the kind of like the battle build with the brute force. This time we do get to see a Nolan on a little tank build, so something quite interesting here. BTK, they do deny away the blue buff. The bully ball kind of continues with the brats, and you know what you're scared of, Private, is just coming into life here. BTK is just dominating across the map. They're just denying waves and jungle creeps over and over, and this time around BTK, I don't know if the side of DA has anything to stop the early rotations.
Yeah, and just like that, Nolan losing his purple buff hurts so much because the biggest problem, ooh, nice little Divine Judgment there, catches on the Cold World, followed up by a penalty zone. 2 Nether Realms are out, neither team able to find the advantage, but all the while this is going on, Mobazane picking up the turtle as well. What I was going to say is that when you have Kush actually getting picked up here. Oh, Melon's going to be able to clear this out. Kush in a little bit of trouble. Cold World and Nicolette in tow. Melon uses that flicker to get himself to safety. But Kush without the purple buff, the thing that makes a Nolan so strong is his ability to spam his abilities so quickly. And you need a lot of mana for that. You need to be able to kind of to get a lot of that back. Without the purple buff, yeah, he can spam his abilities, but he's useless for like after that 30 seconds of spamming those.
And you know, the impact of the Kaja has not been as significant as the I'm Offended coming out from Ruby, and I think that's something that DA kind of has to try to find a way to get around, right? Joybaj, the suppression that he has is quite hard to deal with, but they're just unable to even pull punches. Mobazane just sitting underneath the purple buff, no care in the world, doesn't even mind that the Kaja is there. It's like, hey man, take the Divine Judgment, give it to me. There's nothing that's going to stop me. And the side of Devious is really showing here that there's no burst damage early on to be able to connect with the Divine Judgment, right? Exia needs time to farm. Nolan definitely needs a lot of time to farm, and Fairness is not a significant burst mage. It's more of a kind of like a long-term burst with some of the AoE, but Divine Judgment? Not Divine Judgment.
Yeah, we do have another one coming out there. But to add on to your point, even if you find a target, how are you going to get to that target when you've got Cold World with so much CC? Mielo can punish you with a penalty zone. There's just so much CC that even if you find the Divine Judgment, any type of closing the distance is going to be to the detriment of Devious Activity. Nicolette does get pulled in to that mid tower, still able to get away. Joybot coming from the side, a very slow Divine Judgment. Nicolette able to find the flicker and a Nether Realm. I'm Offended comes out, finds a kill onto Kush. Full barrage does not help, unfortunately, for Devious Activities. Bloodthirsty King's gonna walk away with yet another kill.
Yeah, another Divine Judgment opportunity that did not convert into a kill. 3-0 is on the board, but Divine Judgment is a skill that even when it goes into the late game, still has the possibility of, you know, singling out a specific target. And, you know, that's what DA kind of has. They have the Arlot to displace, they have the Netherrealm, but before that,
yeah, we do see that T. He's going to have to expend that flicker. Mobazane and the rest of BTK basically have this purple buff on cooldown. They know the timing of it. And Mobazane able to get another purple buff for himself. T in trouble. Netherrealm is out. It is going to help them get an escape. Yellow looking for an opportunity. And 2 stuns for D. And they get pushed back into the maw of BTK and picked off by Nicolette and Mielo.
Man, Zane is eating good this match. 203, highest impact player. Able to get another one here. There's just not much that the side of Devious has. And, you know, it's honestly just due to the risk that they took of picking up this Nolan, right? Typically, when you go for the Assassins, you want a very hard frontline set tank, something like an Edith or, you know, a Minotaur where he's in the front side, in the bush, and his overall objective is to clear some of these bushes and get a very deep CC, a multiple CC stun. But this time around with something like a Kaja typically is not very bush check viable, right? He's kind of an assassin hiding in the back, goes with the Divine Judgment off the cooldown of the Flicker, gets a guaranteed pick off and rinse and repeat. But the side of DA, especially in the early game, they're unable to find any openings to get that guaranteed pick off, and that's kind of the reason why Devious is struggling. They don't have any, you know, way to counter a lot of these fights, to punish a lot of the mistakes that BTK might have, especially when they do choose for the commit. And you know, you said it quite well early on. Cold World, too much CC to deal with, even with the Trizla.
Ooh, two Nether Realms are out. Final Slash has been used. T in a little bit of trouble, and we're looking for more damage. T actually able to find himself and escape, and both teams walk away without taking a death. So, I mean, I guess looking up for devious activity in there that they didn't lose anybody, but it's already going to go ahead and set up for BTK, who's already going to start focusing on this next Lord.
And even with the split push strategy that DA has, Nolan definitely can do quite good in terms of the split push, but that just gives away a lot of the neutral objective that DA has already lost early on, right? There was not much contesting in terms of some of the turtles coming up, and even with this Lord, there's just almost absolutely no contestation. DA, they are struggling in terms of finding the pickoffs that they're looking for. Maybe this conceal might make a difference, but I think BTK already spotted it here.
Yeah, and unfortunately for DA, not able to find anything with that conceal. Some good placement from Nicolette and Cold Worlds. Very patient with it right now. They're going to have some minions and the Lord crashing down at the bottom. So they're looking for an opportunity here. And DA knows what's up. It's going to be 3v5 concealed play of their own. Full barrage, but Melon does not see them on the back line. 2 down, 3 down for devious activity. BTK roll right through them in this bottom lane.
You know, Private, maybe next week we might get you know, some closer series, because it's hard, right? BTK completely dominating in the first 2 matches here, but fight.
Yeah, and that's going to be it for Kush and Yato and the core. BTK wrapping up, the quickest match of the night, beating Gaming Gladiators with a 10-minute and 36-second match here against Devious Activity.
11-0, Private. A clean sweep from the Bloodthirsty Kings here. The all-star lineup of DA is unable to get even just a kill, a punish off of the Bloodthirsty Kings here. 11-0 and 34 is the overall KDA. BTK played a great game, and when we take a look at their draft, it was so smart, right? They had 3 members that was slotted in early on: the Barats, the Harith, no CC available there, even with the Valentina. But they added on the Ruby and the Trizla and just made their comp so extremely tough to deal with. The front line had the ability to, you know, peel off anything that they're looking for, even go for some conceal engagement. And the bet that Devious Activity had, right? When you pair the Assassin up with the Kaja, typically it's just not where we want to be. The Assassin is very, very strong, especially when you pair it with the Grok, with an Edith, or even a Minotaur, a Tigreal, those frontline sets. But the Kaja, you know, it just didn't really find the pickoffs that they were looking for. The 2-3 Divine Judgments that he did try to put out just ended up failing. You can see a lot of zeros across the board for the side of Devious Activity. It's just not the game that they were looking for. The risk didn't play it off, but honestly, it was a well draft done by the side of BTK. It almost had no weaknesses against the composition that the side of DA well put. And even with the early game aggressiveness with the Barats, with denying some of the purple buffs, going into the red side to, you know, create havoc, BTK definitely shined quite well in this match.
Yeah, and you can see here typical for BTK, basic with the gold per minute. Zane actually coming in with the almost 30,000 damage there, and Cold World with the assists. I want to say the biggest difference for me in the Gaming Gladiators matchup and this one for BTK is, I want to say, BTK's draft against Devious Activity. Devious Activity, I mean, just from the beginning, from the draft, you already see some of the holes in it. They're lacking a lot of CC early game, a lot of synergy with some of these picks, and BTK, it's all about those three things, and they execute it so quickly, and they're getting even faster at executing it here. That was a 10-minute game there. You can see here the head-to-head for Mielo and Devious Activity here. 2-0-7 for Mielo, who's been having, I want to say, a great night so far. Devious Activity, I want to say, like right now, it starts with the draft, and then it comes up to well, honestly, I don't even know where to go from there. We need to first work on the draft. We need some more CC. We need some more early game. We need some answers. But right now, I want to say BTK is on top of it.
Yeah, the suit and tie is working well for the BTK. The playoffs, right? These teams have all had a lot of times to prepare. Gaming Gladiators definitely shine in terms of some of that preparation, and BTK right here is still proving to us that they are one of the two of North America. They stand above the rest, and they're continuing to prove that point. It was a tough game for the side of Devious Activities, something that they could definitely bounce back from. It's just that they have to, just like you're saying, build a little bit more early game, try to find a little bit more CC, a little bit more frontline to deal with their comp, or go for something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, right? Last game, I felt like the Louis Arlock could easily be slotted in early, right? The Masha that has not been picked up, the Natan that is also available, but people are sticking to this Exia pick, which, you know, quite honestly, when it comes down to some of the world stages, it's just not going to happen just like that, right? It's a very, very hard pick to set up. You need a lot of front lines like the Terizla, the Edith, the Minnow in the front to be able to stop even a Fredrin, to be able to stop people in their tracks, and the setup is just not a perfect scenario for the Exia to be able to be picked in, like, let's say the first or the second phase of the draft. Like, it's way too early. It's not something that I like. I think things like the Carry and the Kaja could have paired well, especially dealing with something like the Barats. Those are things that are available, but, you know, DA is not opting to go for those picks, and I think it's just biting them in the butt at this point.
Yeah, I was about to comment on that too. I feel like for some reason right now in North America, we've super hyper fixated on Ixia as like the end all be all right now. She's got some glaring holes in her kit, which is just the fact that she's basically a sitting duck. You could put a flicker on her, but if you don't have something that's able to peel for her, excuse me, so upset by this, but something that's able to create that wall for her, she's basically a sitting duck, and there's just so many better picks. And I was actually kind of looking to see if maybe Ixia came up in like MPLPH or something very suddenly. No, it's just here that we have this. We feel like she can just be this this huge game changer. I know there's been some players that have had relative success, Melon being one of those, but against a team like BTK, you need to be able to protect your marksman, and putting them on Ixia, you're basically setting a lot of dials against him. So, I mean, you can take a look here at the damage taken. I mean, it's pretty much a lot of it going over to 0%. There's just there were no kills there for Devious Activity right now, and they need to figure something out here quickly.
Is like, when have we seen a Faramis getting the sandbag, my friend? Like, what, like, where are we in terms of the meta that the Faramis is the one that's getting hit hard? So there's definitely some logistic problem inside of Devious that they have to kind of fix in order for them to get back into this series. And if not this series, there's definitely a lot of matches that they have to play through in kind of the lower bracket, right? And, you know, they have a little bit more leeway to be able to, you know, figure things out. Again, this DA is quite a new lineup that we haven't seen in the regular season. I know they talked about how consistent, and this is the lineup that they really wanted to put, but standing up tall again. North America, they're not able to get the performance that they were looking for. And this is pretty much the Dark Knight team that we all vetted in the beginning. Hey, they're going to be a contender. They're going to give BTK a very hard time. And so far, we're not exactly getting to see that. Yes, the individual players are good. The playmaking ability of each one is things that we cannot take away. But in terms of the 5-man synergy, BTK is just dominating and just vibrating all, like anything in its path. They're just completely destroying it. And it's just not Moba Zane's game anymore. Milo popped off. Cold World 100% KP popped off there. Moba Zane, of course, still holding up strong with that leadership, 100% KP. I don't think this game is going to be any different.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest talking points for me when it comes to BTK and their growth throughout the season, or even throughout seasons, plural, is that the synergy he kind of lacked last season with his team put everything on his shoulders. If you want to beat BTK, attack Moba Zane, ban out Moba Zane, bing, bang, boom, it's done. He was going to be the strongest part. That is no longer an option here because you've got the rest of BTK here have performed. Even if you give, I talked about it before, I think it was off screen I talked about it, but even if you give him an Akai, or if you give him one of the last picks in his jungle arsenal, the drafting has been so good that the rest of the composition will support that pick in a way that it still becomes a problem for you. And right now, Devious Activity having problems even trying to get that early game, finding out those little things to make some of these. They have strong picks in mind, but they're not setting the stage to make those picks successful. The Ixia, the lack of CC, the lack of the early game in that first game that they had. And that's just where BTK is starting to shine here. We can see some of the normal picks here, focusing on the support roles there. Matilda and Angela going to be banned out for BTK. Xborg and the Farama is going to be taken off for Devious Activity.
And I do want to give a shout out to Midnight. I think it's a PH caster. You know, he's been helping out BTK with a lot of the drafts, and definitely very, very impactful, right? Even just the last 2 picks that he just pretty much secured and well-rounded the draft BTK. The lack of CC provided with 2 of the biggest frontline sets. Right, like those are extremely hard heroes to deal with, a Terizla and a Ruby. Like, you're not getting behind those heroes, you're not getting onto the backside. You have to face those 2 things in front. And you know, Midnight is able to kind of build a draft around what BTK is so good at, and you know, they're shining right now. It's very convincing that the draft fits with their style. The coaching is helping out, and all the members, it's not a, you know, Moba Zane show no more. You know, we got players like Cold World, Nicolette, Milo, so much impact, and also Basic, right? He's not even getting his moment to shine anymore on, you know, in the gold lane, just because the games are just closing out so early. He's getting, you know, some good KDAs, getting some pushes here and there, but Milo is just, you know, so in front. You also see, you know, Cold World always in the front of engaging. BTK is just such a strong team right now.
I've talked with Milo and gotten, I want to say, I don't know how to say, but like his
mentality, maybe
the way he
style.
Approaches the XP lane, yeah, his style for this, and he's always kind of seen it as the XP laner. Their primary role, especially in the early game, they set the tempo for a lot of objectives. It's on the XP laner, and he takes that whole pressure on. When it used to be the Terizla pick, he would kind of come in with that penalty zone. We've been seeing it as he front lines with the Xborg as well, but his style there is to kind of be the front line. He is the one that kind of carries the BTK through a lot of these objectives, especially in the early to mid game where the objectives are the big thing. As it starts getting more into the late game, that's when the rest of the team, that's when you have your marksman starting to get fed up there. That's when you have your mage starting to get more and more damage. But he's been executing here to perfection here. We've talked about him, especially in the first 2 games here. I do like this pick. Devious Activity, some CC, some tankiness, a front line. Thank you, Lord.
But the opening from BTK is It's so convincing already. It is still a little bit kind of like that old school style that we've seen Valentina Fredrin, right? You know, it gets a little bit old, but it is still just one of the strongest retries in the jungle. You also have the Valentino, the IMU to take the Minone's Fury. So, you know, it's definitely a well-rounded draft here. DA with a pretty good response too, right? The CC that they were lacking, now they're able to get it, but they're picking up a utility style jungle instead of kind of like the assassins that they looked for the last game. So it's a little bit countering what the style that they're looking for, but definitely a lot of front line and a crazy response from the side of BTK. Barats, Minotaur, that's fine, man. I'm gonna take a carry with a Purify, and I'm gonna be able to hit through all the front lines in Novaria. It's gonna be hard to be able to, you know, get the snipes off a carry, especially with so much dashes that he has. It's gonna be quite hard, but I definitely feel like the Novaria fits with Yato's style. He's been playing quite well on this hero throughout the regular season. Even in the last match, you know, I think he maybe died, or not the last match, but the very first game, he maybe died once or twice at most. Didn't take too much damage, so this definitely does prolong the game a little bit. But BTK's draft here so far is just very counter towards the frontline heavy that Devious has. Even with the CC that they provided, the carry is just so extremely smart here, Private.
I was going to get a little worried for Devious Activity because they hadn't picked a marksman. I was like, man, if all answers point to Ixia again, I'm going to be very upset. But BTK, they're like, you know what? Show us something different. We'll help you out. You don't want the Ixia here. They're going to go ahead and take out the Roger pick as well. Something interesting from Devious Activity, they're going to take out the Uranus pick here. Possibly looking for, well, you don't have the CC out there anymore. It's very interesting. Mielo did play a decent Uranus in the past as well. I'm actually, it's gonna be interesting. We'll see what we got. So far, a promising draft from Devious Activity. We're still gonna be waiting for. We still need that physical damage from them. We're still looking for. I guess that XP lane as well. We have a backline dive, Black Dragon out there for the side of BTK, and the Hanabi.
But here we go. So the Hanabi is very, very good to deal with a lot of initial CC things like, you know, Atlas or Akai or even the Tigreal. But one thing that she is not good at, that BTK could bring into the table, is the Kaja. Kaja paired up with the carry, perfect combination. Kaja with the Valentina, very, very solid early game that, you know, does, you know, go into what BTK likes to stand for. And Kaja not bush checking, you have the Fredrin in the front, right? So a very, very strong potential for side BTK if they opt to pick that up. We love the Charizla pick here. Charizla and Minotaur, very, very hard to deal with. And now with the Hanabi that BTK has struggled in the past to deal with, it does shine a little bit of hope for the side of DA to be able to go through. But going against a Yu Zhong where it's dive heavy in the back, it's some trouble here, Private, for me. It's not convincing enough for a Hanabi to be warranted here. Where's the Natans? Where is the Claudes, right? Like, where are we going with this meta?
In answer to what you were saying, they go ahead and pick up the Kaja. It's the immediate answer for the Hanabi.
Yep.
And I will say, BTK, they struggled against the Hanabi, but I want to add an asterisk to that point, is they struggled against the Hanabi with Angela on the team. So you had a Heart Guard. If you know about Hanabi, Hanabi, when she has a shield, she's CC immune. And then plus you just have a shield on her. So she's going to be able to run amok. You combine that with Angela, who has a Heart Guard, Angela, who has a Flask of the Oasis, that's even more shield that she gets, and then Hanabi, who has the Aegis as well. You don't have a lot of those other options here with this Hanabi pick. You have a lot of CC, you've got a lot of tanking and front line, but what I feel like Hanabi lacks that other marksmen sometimes shine in is a lot of the damage that they can bring in. That Hanabi, you're really expecting her to be able to do a lot of damage for a long time because you're expecting that shield to last you, where other marksmen, they do just a lot more damage in that time span. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to say Devious Activity fighting for their chances in the upper bracket here. This is game point for the Bloodthirsty Kings.
Is BTK playing like a 4D chess here? Because, you know, the Kaja and the carry, perfect synergy, right? The Hanabi, you know, the side of DA, a lot of the drafts that they do, especially going up against BTK, it's just a little bit awkward, right? Common emblems for both the carry and the Kaja. Tank for the Fredrin, quite standard here for both of these teams. You know, not much out of the ordinary, quite standard. And, you know, once again, I feel like BTK's draft is quite good, but early pick.
Ooh. Yeah,
like
you did see there. Cold World almost got caught there. A very nice little snipe coming in from Yato. Brought him down, but unfortunately, Devious Activity just not quick enough that time to be able to close the distance and find the kill.
Yeah, some early aggression with the Novaria and the Terizla. I think that's good news for the side of DA, right? Like, if they're able to get some pickoffs early, some flickers traded here and there, it definitely shines a little bit of moment of greatness, and I think that's what Devious needs, right? A little bit better of an early game advantage sets them up a long way for the late game team fights, and heroes like the Hanabi definitely feels like it is required for you to go into that late game. And when you take a look at the roam matchups, right, the Minotaur and the Kaja, Minotaur traditionally is supposed to counter the Kaja, so I would say DA actually stands out ahead in terms of this matchup. It just depends on how they can execute this match.
And immediately after dropping T very low, Black Dragon comes out. Kush finds himself a retribution. Mobazane gets taken out. Joybosh picking up the kill there. Cold World looking for an escape on the side. Melon cuts off their escape, looking for a kill onto Nicolette, and Joybosh finds it for Devious Activity, and unanswered 2 deaths there for DA, and nothing that BTK can do in reply.
Yeah, here we go, Private. This is what we're talking about, right? Some fight, some flair coming out from the side of DA, and their comp matches so well with what they are drafting up against, right? A little bit of a gold lead for their jungler, for their XP. Pretty much everyone overall has a little bit of close to like a 500 gold lead, right? The mage, the XP, and the jungler. So some good news, good trades for the side of DA. It definitely feels like in terms of their team fight, it's a little bit more convincing this time around, a little bit more well-rounded, and they even got the Hanabi to come in for some action, right? So Devious Activity already with a much better start this time around.
Yeah, even though T actually got bursted really low, which allowed Mielo to come in with the Black Dragon, which meant that Devious Activity was a player down for that engagement and still able to find success with it. That just speaks a lot about the momentum kind of going into this game. If they can kind of hold on to it, keep their rotations tight, make sure that when these objectives come, oh, look at that, another little astral sphere there from Yato. It's going to find a mark onto 2 members of BTK.
And you know, this time around, before that,
yeah, Divine Judgment comes on. Joybosh gets a hammer down, getting hit with his own Minoan Fury, and then followed up with an Appraiser's Wrath. We find another kill off a screen for BTK. Yato getting dove under the tower. He is going to be able to find a flicker, gets away. Mobazane down to half health, but he's going to be able to chunk some gold off of this mid tower.
Yeah, even with Devious Activity able to get 3 kills quite early on, Milo was able to pick up 1 kill for himself, and they do get a pick off onto the mid side, but they did waste a lot of the resources, right? No utilities available. Cold World does not have Divine Judgment, so most likely, even with the Minoan's Fury being set up by Joybosh, this should pretty much go uncontested for the side of DA, and it does. Now, the side of BTK, what's interesting here is that Milo is on this Yuzong, and Milo has to choose greatly here, right? Does he zone out the Navaria, go for a full send there, or does he target Melon, which is going to be a little bit more closer to the front line, but he has to get through things like the Joybosh, like the Terizla. So it's going to be a hard decision for Milo to make, and I think that's what's going to make the difference here. If he's able to choose correctly and get the pickoffs that he's looking for, On the other hand, I think DA, they're relatively playing kind of a reactive game, right? They want BTK to kind of full send forward, get, you know, Cold World to flicker into a play that's disadvantaged towards him, have the counter set from Joybaj, and then the rest of the members kind of follow up. So DA, honestly, they have what it takes to be able to push through in this game, but a lot of the history has shown that DA, you know, they're just unable to kind of get a winning team fight early so far. They're able to do it in this game so far, but is it going to last long? I think that's the real question that DA has to figure out here.
Nicolette very carefully in that pixel bush when you bring up the items, but I wanted to touch on the thing you were saying. I think the obvious answer is that the Black Dragon goes to zone out Yato. You have an answer in Cold World to possibly take down Melon on the other side. So if you use it, because if you use the Black Dragon to go for Melon, you're not only are you competing with the front line, but you're also competing with Melon, who's got an Aegis, who's going to have shield, who might not be trapped down with that Petrify and able to get away. So now you've wasted that ability, and you still have Yato bringing down suppressive fire from well outside your reach.
And you know what's crazy is that Nicolette, being the support player that she always kind of talks about, the support mage style, she builds up anti-heal first item on a mage, and typically when you go anti-heal first item, it's a 5% cooldown reduction. You do get the anti-heal, a little bit of health, a little bit of damage, but it's not significant. It doesn't give like 20% like a book does. It doesn't give, you know, the extra burst damage that they're looking for, but Daytona's welcoming.
Yeah, Detna's welcome touches on the Mielo. Kush still able to find himself a retribution, but is going to be taken down by Mielo. In comes Joybaj. Minoan Fury does not meet its mark, and they are latched on to Mielo. They answer back a death with another death, a kill of their own. Mobazane comes in with a bonk of his own, not able to find anything there, but still Yato finding some of these little snipes. I want to say that play coming out ahead still for Devious Activity right now.
Yeah, 1-for-1 trade. The turtle does go in favor of the side of Devious. They're still holding on to their lead barely, but it seems like BTK is content with just trading a 1-for-1, right? They know the carry can scale well in the late game, and even look at this trade, right? Basic was, you know, not doing so extremely well in terms of the laning phase. In terms of both of their hit range, I think Hanabi either slightly more or just around the same, but with the ability of the cleave, she's gonna do a little bit better in terms of some of the laning phases. So definitely Melon having a little bit better in terms of that lane is doing quite well. They do end up putting a trade, and I still think BTK is quite content with just going even in the early and the mid game, and just going to rely on some of the Divine Judgment flicker off cooldown to be able to deal with some of the damage. But Daytona's.
Yeah, they do kind of catch out Cold World and Nicolette on the backside. Mielo looking for an opportunity for the flank sandwich in between two BTK members. Big pop-up lands on the Kush. Out comes the Black Dragon. Mielo looking and flying through the air, does not find an opportunity there, but I want to say Devious Activity. The difference right now is that they're just a little slower than when BTK, like the last few games, when they had this advantage, they were really pressing into a lot of these objectives. We can see here in that last fight there, Kush did get dragged out. They were able to trade a kill for a kill. They find Mielo here, but ultimately that turtle goes over to the side of Devious Activity.
And I do want to mention the last Black Dragon, like, you know, it's a little bit out of position. They're looking for fights 20 seconds before the Lord even spawns. Now, both sides don't have utilities available. Like, you know, I feel like we got to be just a little bit more disciplined. Another ultimate wasted on the side of Kush. It's like we have to find fights that are just much more favorable in our position, or guaranteed, right? Like this Lord objective, if the side of BTK chooses to come in, they can find a fight that's potentially in their favor, and it does look like they're looking for it.
Yeah, they're going to be able to possibly get this. Mobazane gets the Lord, and from the side, Basic coming in with a speedy light wheel, laying on the damage. Down goes Melon, now setting his sights onto Joybaj, laying in more auto attacks. Is not able to find it, but he is going to be able to find a kill on to T.
Another 3-for-0 advantage for the side of BTK as they sweep through this mid game. It's only 10 minutes in, but now BTK already with a substantial gold lead in their favor. And you talked about it, right? The gold lead that BTK had in the first 2 games, they just stepped the pedal on the gas and they never let go. But DA unable to convert any of their gold lead into a significant advantage, even in the towers. And now BTK has the lead. They have the Kaja, they have the carry. It scales quite well into the late game. The synergy is there. Paired up with the IMU, the peel is significant, and BTK is just holding on to the lead that they have. But DA found them.
Yeah, you can see Mobazane coming in here. Joyboz in trouble here, looking for an escape. Speedy Lightwheel from the back there, basically doing a ton of damage. Kush very low. Yellow looking for the... Oh, he's not going to be able to get it. Big pop-up lands. Joyboz with that Minoan Fury. That actually might have been a mistake. He is going to be able to get away. But I want to say on that last Lord fight, it felt like the entirety of Devious Activity got caught by the Lord Stomp. They all got popped up. That allowed a huge ability for Mobazane to come in with the Retribution, and just I want to say a huge mistake for Devious Activity. And now that BTK has the advantage, they are just pressing their will.
It looked good. You know, the fight from DA that they had it set up, it was like a 2 versus 4 on the Lord. The Hobby was hitting it to it, but you know, even with that strategy that was still positive on their end, the wild element of the Lord knockup hit like 3-4 members and completely knocked, you know, the side of DA out of their tracks. And now Kush, you're getting picked off.
Ooh, Kush is going to have to use that Denton's Welcome to get away from Mobazane's bonk there. In comes the Black Dragon, popping up Kush. That might be all she wrote. Yato going to have to use that Flicker to get away. Divine Judgment lands onto Mielo, and he is going to be picked apart by the entirety of BTK.
Yeah, the Kaja pick to deal with the Hanabi was just too good of a setup. You know, it was almost like DA was kind of dreaming that the Hanabi could cheese and potentially work in this favor. But, you know, the Kaja pick is just a little bit too much now. 5 members onto the mid. I don't know if they could defend this.
Yeah, they're trying to. Unfortunately, that's going to be Joyboz down. Yato runs for the hills, and this is going to be BTK with the win, and they are going to be meeting Gaiman Gladiators for the upper bracket finals.
What was this? 21 minutes, and then we had a 10-minute 30 seconds, and this time around, another short game by the side of BTK. A very convincing win. Again, for a lot of these championship contending teams, talking about BTK and Gaming Gladiators, they're definitely showing why they are the top dogs in NACT. A very strong performance by the side of BTK, but you know, honestly, DA in the last match, they did make some changes. They were able to get some advantage early on, and they were able to kind of hold against BTK for quite a bit of some time. But, you know, just with the raw element, the Lord popping up 3-4 members, the Retry not going in their favor, some unfortunate events added up together for the snowball that BTK has. And BTK, again, the team that with a small lead, they're going to be able to push advantage versus the small lead that DA had, unable to convert that into anything. You know, BTK is just the stronger team in this series just for today, but DA definitely has an opportunity to make up some of that mistakes in the lower bracket and try to go above and beyond and maybe see BTK back towards the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, Devious Activity had some hurdles here today going up against, but BTK largely considered one of the top teams in North America right now, and they're showing it here, especially with that draft. I want to say the early game, even though Devious Activity had the advantage, they weren't pressing it. They weren't getting towers. They weren't transitioning those kills into towers against BTK, which meant when they did get the objective, BTK was easily able to disengage, run back to the tower without losing too much, which is the difference between when BTK had the advantage in the early game. They were able to get the kills. They were able to get towers down as well, which meant when they got those objectives, when they got those turtles, there was nowhere for DA to run because they had to run back to their tier 2s or all the way back to their tier 2s, and they were getting set up on the way over there. It just took one mistake here for Devious Activity. That Lord fight pops them up. BTK able to find the Retribution and then close down 3 members, and then it was pretty much GG from there with the Lord marching down and only 2 members from Devious Activity able to defend the base.
Yeah, it was a good setup by the side of BTK. The draft just worked out well. We talked about the Kaja being that last pick, 2, 0, and 7. Do believe that is the highest KDA, 9 out of the 10 kills. So the impact player Cole World is just proving points after points. You know, he doesn't die much, doesn't make too much mistakes, has almost the right shot call in almost every opportunity. So we'll definitely have to see how they face up against a team like Gaming Gladiators next weekend. But you know, it's still a pretty good performance from both of these teams. Just BTK just kind of coming out on top. Now Rich Guy Basic coming through, 800 gold per minute, highest damage dealt from Basic. Again, it's the carry pick, right? This is a pick where you get a lot of the golds, a golden staff, a DHS, and you are on it. You're able to just shred through anyone. Of course, highest damage dealt goes to him. Sandbags, Mobazane able to pick that up, and you know, the assist person Nicolette is able to take that trophy.
Yeah, even here, I mean, not too big of a difference. Kill participation more on the side of Kush, but both of these guys are kind of doing their job. I want to say Kush, especially in the lead for the early game, you see what a successful draft does and how much pressure it alleviates, especially in that early game where Kush was missing all of his retries in the first 2 games. Here, able to find the first 3 retries against those turtles, out retrying Zane there. We take a look here at the damage dealt, swooping in Basic with 46,000 there. Nicolette's, I want to say the standard for mages right now, and you're absolutely correct. You hit the button. You hit the button on the nose with when it comes to how she likes to play. She plays a very utility support mage. Gets that slow. Gets those utility items first to help out. She's not looking to do a lot of damage. She's looking to do a lot of CC to kind of facilitate a lot of those kills for the team, and does an excellent job at that.
Woo, Liz, I know you got something you got against me, huh? Tell it to me now.
Yue, why don't you talk to us about it? Your confidence, what happened?
No, it's a great match coming out from DA. I think they have things that they understand that they have to go back into the drawing board and kind of get the plays, because quite honestly, BTK, they were able to get all their members involved in almost every situation. We saw Milo pop off many times. We saw Basic pop off many times, and Cole World just adding that support with Mobazane. They're just always around each other. So I think, you know, DA this time, unfortunately, they couldn't get the win here. Going back to the drawing board, coming up with some better strategies and maybe fixing up some of their drafts, I think they definitely stand a chance. But Liz, the rest of my votes, I'm telling you right now, it's happening. It's happening tomorrow.
Okay. All right, guys. Tomorrow, you guys have to be on the watch for Yue's predictions and how successful he is with holding his words up. Now, you guys mentioned a lot during the match is that there's a huge difference with BTK's draft when it comes to draft. It seems like Coach Midnight is really doing God's work with BTK with the drafts that they're going in with, right?
Well, yeah, it's even to the little things like what we've seen little examples of it throughout the season, where when Gaming Gladiators used to just focus down on Zane, where they found it like the easiest thing, just focus Zane and then we'll just GG the rest. They're not able to do that anymore. They did that. They got hit up with Cole World on the Matilda. We're seeing that if you focus down on Zane, there's going to be whatever pick he has, it's going to be supported by a composition that works well with it. So you're going to have to come with more of an advanced game plan than that. And then what we're seeing here, I mean, the CC there, it's almost, I want to say the drafts, there's never a weak point. There's never been a time in BTK's draft where I'm just like, huh, well, I mean, I guess that'll be all right. But it's always been like, yes, I understand where this is going. I understand what this is going to help with. And it's been a very sustained draft. And I want to say he's picked it up to a new level for BTK.
Yeah, no, I mean, even in just this series, right? There was opportunity where BTK didn't have too much CC, and Midnight comes out with 2 solid pickups, right? They see the Hanabi, they prepared against it, they knew exactly what to counter it. And you know, know that Kaja is very, very good against Hanabi. I don't know if a lot of people do. And BTK, with the flexibility of putting Cold World at the very end, had the opportunity to do so. And I think it's quite beautiful that Midnight's able to come up with a strategy that allows BTK to shine convincingly in the upper bracket here.
Exactly. And talking about Cold World, he did land that MVP. So Private, why don't you take us through his amazing plays?
Oh man, I'm actually in awe of Cold World. Like I said, he was actually questionable for me when he first started, because I'm like, this dude has played all these different roles. Is he really going to be ready for this roam? But talking with Midnight, especially yesterday during the round table, he said Cold World possesses something that a lot of different roams don't have, and that is game sense. And that's why he put him onto the main roster. That's why he's been so successful with all of these different picks, to the point where you can't really ban out a lot of his roams because he plays so many and he plays them so well. And you can see there from a lot of those there. He's just, and especially being able to flex into that Kaja, the comfort that BTK has, where it's like, okay, we can just go ahead, throw Cold World in last, whatever it is, he'll be able to counter it, and we'll be able to pretty much go for the sweep here against Devious Activity.
Yeah, and it's also quite cool here that BTK always kind of had this center of attention spotlight towards Mobazane, and we've kind of brought it to the life where it's not just Zane's show anymore. It's not just Kobe's show anymore. It's all the players that are all being involved in this matchup. The spotlight is not only on him. You forgot, Cold World literally has a hero pool of so many things. Nicolette, a power player herself. You can't even have bans to go against basic anymore because you're worried about Zane, you're worried about Cole, you're worried about Nicolette. And then you got Milo here with like an X-Borg, or like a Paquito going full damage, or the Benedetta, or even the Uranus that got banned out this time around. There's so much focusing points on BTK's lineup. It's hard to find a strategy that just works completely well. And I think that's going to be the story about next week, to see how they actually match up and deal with each other.